As a general rule, parasites prefer to operate under the radar, because if their host becomes gravely injured, they're out of a food source. This is not always the case with sea lamprey. As you can probably tell from the circular rows of teeth on a suction cup face, subtlety isn't really their style. The sea lamprey is just one of 47 different species of lamprey. Some parasitic, some none. But what is a lamprey? Why do their mouths be like that? And what is this one doing? We'll find the answer to all those questions and more as we continue exploring the Tree of Life. Lamprey are members of the order Petromyzontiformis, the sole surviving order within Class Hyperoartia. As we learned last week, the lamprey's closest living relative is the hagfish, both of which have no scales, no pectoral fins, one nostril, and of course, no jaw. However, adult lamprey do have well-developed eyes and a primitive spine made of cartilage. This is of special interest to researchers studying spinal injuries and regenerative medicine, because the lamprey is actually able to regrow parts of its spinal cord that become injured. But the weirdo biology does not stop there. All lamprey begin life as a larva called an ammocote. Blind, toothless, filter-feeding animals that are so different from adults that they were originally thought to be a totally different animal. The ammocotes live in burrows at the bottom of freshwater streams and rivers, peacefully filter-feeding for up to 8 years before undergoing metamorphosis and leaving their burrows behind. What happens next depends on the species. Some, known as brook lamprey, develop eyes and a mouth filled with teeth, but lose a functioning digestive system, never feeding past the larval stage. They stay in fresh water their entire lives, swimming upstream to spawn as soon as they reach sexual maturity and dying shortly after. Other species, like the sea lamprey, swim out to large lakes or the open ocean to feed. This is where all those cute little teeth come in handy. As intimidating as the teeth on the lamprey's oral disc appear, their main function is to grab and hold on to the side of their prey. Their tongue is by far the more painful appendage, boring into flesh and tissue like a spiny shovel to feed on blood, flesh, and other bodily fluids. Some species will also secrete an enzyme that prevents their victim's blood from clotting, similar to how leeches and mosquitoes feed. Carnivorous lamprey species live for a few years as parasites before reaching sexual maturity and then returning to fresh water to spawn, often traversing fast-moving water and using the suctioning power of their mouths to pull their bodies forward against the current. Upon arriving at their baby-making destination, lamprey will build a nest by moving stones and pebbles to create a bowl-shaped depression in a shallow riverbed. Females then release thousands of eggs into the nest to be fertilized by the male. In most species, the parents die shortly after spawning. Once the eggs hatch, the larvae drift with the current until they find a suitable place to make their burrow. Along with their wild and wacky natural history is an equally wild and wacky history in human culture that dates back as far as the Roman Empire. Throughout Europe, lamprey meat was a traditional delicacy for the upper class. It was served at banquets hosted by Julius Caesar, and later during royal coronations in Britain. Today, it remains an important part of the culinary culture in Portugal, Spain, France, Finland, and Latvia. While my pale-ass ancestors treated lamprey as a high-class hoity-toity delicacy, Native American tribes in the Pacific Northwest view them as a part of their cultural identity. Pacific lamprey have been sustainably harvested by tribes in this region for countless generations, who consider them a first food to be treated with respect and stewardship. The traditional idea being that people should conserve that which sustains them, a novel concept. It's a good thing the current residents of this fine continent treat our food and resources with the same levels of dignity and appreciation. Unfortunately, Pacific lamprey have been declining in the United States over the past century due to the construction of dams that block their migratory paths. and the fish ladders used by salmon to cross these barriers aren't suited to lamprey movement. Activism by local tribes resulted in the modification of dams in the Columbia River Basin to accommodate the climbing patterns of Pacific lamprey, such as ramps with more rounded edges for them to cling to. Now, this may come as a terrible shock, but I'm not the leading authority on Native American conservation initiatives, so I highly recommend checking out this short video by the Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission to learn more about the Pacific lamprey and the role that Columbia Basin tribes take in the restoration of this declining species and its habitat. While the Pacific lamprey is being restored in the Northwest, a very different issue can be seen in the Great Lakes, where the largest lamprey species, the sea lamprey, have established themselves as an invasive species. The sea lamprey's natural range in North America extends from the Atlantic Ocean, up the St. Lawrence River, and into Lake Ontario. That was until the construction of the Welland Canal in the early 1900s, which connected Lake Ontario to Lake Erie, allowing both shipping vessels and, inadvertently, sea lamprey to bypass the natural barrier created by Niagara Falls. This wouldn't be a problem except for the fact that sea lamprey evolved alongside larger and more robust prey than can be found in the Great Lakes, giving them a significant and often deadly advantage over native species. This resulted in a major collapse of lake trout, whitefish, and chub populations during the 40s and 50s, forever altering the natural balance of the Great Lakes ecosystem and devastating the fishing industry in that area. This is a textbook example of how invasive species can impact both wildlife and human life. The need to eradicate sea lamprey in the Great Lakes, juxtaposed with the need to conserve lamprey in the Pacific Northwest, shows how multifaceted and complex wildlife conservation can be. And beyond that, lamprey are just really freaking cool. Now that we have officially grown a spine in this series, it's time to grow some fins, and maybe even a fancy stinger. Next week, we meet the floppy pancake fish of order Myliobatiformis, the stingrays. Follow me on socials at Miller's Wildlife, and make sure to like, subscribe, and leave a nice comment about lamprey down below. Let's collectively raise their self-esteem in the comments. I'll see you next Friday. Until then, stay curious, stay connected, and never stop evolving.